All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. My name is Todd Rosales, and I am your host. We've got an extra special episode for you today. Our guest today is been on Tosh.0. He's been on the I Am Rappaport Stereo podcast, one of my favorite, and featured in numerous other cannabis publications as well as mainstream publications. In addition to that, they have their own radio talk show as well. I think you probably am following me who's here today. But before we get into it, just a few announcements, guys. Join us tomorrow if you want to check out C-Lab, see what it's all about. We're going to have our Investing in Cannabis panel tomorrow night. Again, this is a rock star panel. To see a panel like this, you're going to have to drop some serious coin on a conference. We have it for free for you. Join the Zoom meeting. You can ask questions or check it out live on Facebook tomorrow night. We have Matt Hawkins from Entourage Effect Capital, Matt Norgren from the Arcadian Fund, George Mancherel from Bespoke Financial, Emily Paxia from Poseidon Partners, and our very own John Robbins from our Broward County Board from Ackerman moderating that event. Next Thursday, we have our branding panel. We'll announce the panelists for that shortly. Sunday, July 5th, is the beach cleanup. This is going to be a great event with Florida for Care. Also, help support Florida for Care. They now have their We Educate Wednesdays every Wednesday at 10 a.m. with my buddy Eric Stevens. It's not something you want to miss. And then on next week, we'll finally announce the July 18th fundraiser for the United Spectrum Corp. All right. Now that I've made my guests sit through all that boring stuff, it is an absolute honor to welcome Craig Wasserman, big brother from Pot Brothers of Law.
And great to be here. Thank you for having me, and thanking for help spread the word.
Absolutely, man. So I'm honored that you guys would come on this show. You guys, I think are you know what? You guys went viral, but you're using your platform for the benefit of our industry. And it's funny, we go to a lot of professional industry events, and you're not brought up that often. And I would love to see you guys get integrated in, but I feel I would be remiss if we didn't remind everybody who you are, and you can kind of give us your script, and let's start there, and then we can get into the conversation.
What we fell into ass backwards was Instagram, and the script was, we came up with the script because we did criminal defense for years, and we tell our clients, don't consent, don't talk to the cops. And then after we fell onto Instagram, we're developing how to give free legal recommendations on how to interact with the cops. And it was over the course of time that we actually came up with the script. And every line of the script is there for a specific purpose, either because of case law or because of regulatory law. And we'll go over the script real quick. So when a cop first comes up and asks you, why did you pull, or a cop pulls you over, comes to your window and looks down at you, the first thing you say to them, if they haven't spoken, sometimes they'll say, do you know why I pulled you over? And you say to him, either if he didn't ask you or if he did, why did you pull me over? And then if he starts asking you, what's that I smell? I know you came from somewhere. I know I smell something. Did you have a drink? Did you have a smoke? Or just whatever the case may be. I'm not discussing my day. You can't tell me if you came from somewhere or you're going somewhere or when you last had a smoke. I smell it. So when did you smoke last? I'm not discussing my day. And then if they keep persisting, am I being detained or am I free to go? And if they say you're detained, you get out of the car, you lock your car up, close the windows, put your keys in your pocket, and then you say, I'm invoking the fifth, and then you shut the fuck up. So, I mean, if you want, I can go a real brief breakdown because sometimes people, they get it wrong, or they say half of it correctly, which is good. If you're gonna, all you remember is to shut the fuck up, that's not a bad thing. If all you remember is I'm not discussing my day, that's not a bad thing, because you don't want to discuss your day. You don't want to fuck yourself. That's what everybody does.
Yeah.
When a policeman is talking to you and asking you questions, other than give me your license, registration, ID, if he's talking to you, it means he doesn't have enough to arrest you on. It's just that simple. Otherwise, he'd arrest you. So. Yeah. So the why did you pull me over is important, because there's case law that if a cop comes up to you to give you a traffic ticket, they have approximately, my brother knows the case by heart, 8 to 10 minutes to write you a ticket. So if you don't give them any conversation, they got to write that ticket or come up with independent probable cause to keep you further. But if you start blabbing and saying, I smoked 2 hours ago, you know, not a big deal. Done. Done. You're going in, you're getting searched, whatever the case is. So that's why you say, why did you pull me over? To start the clock running on how long they get to sit there and hold you. And then I'm not discussing my day. It's simple. Don't incriminate yourself. Anything you say or do will be used against you, period. So I'm not discussing my day. And if they persist, am I being detained or am I free to go? They're going to have to make the choice. Am I going to give them the ticket I pulled him over for? Or am I going to detain him for some other thing that he's guessing? It's a hunch. He's profiling somebody. They got to make a decision. You didn't say anything. You didn't give him anything to further other than a traffic stop. So hopefully he lets you go. I mean, that does happen quite a bit. We get DMs. We have posted one today, I think, this morning on someone who did it in Ohio. And the script worked. And if they detain you, you invoke the fifth. You have to verbally say it. The Supreme Court of the United States said you have to speak to invoke your right to silence. There was a case where a guy went like this. He looked down, didn't say anything, never said a word during the interrogation, was silent. They were able to use that as an admission of guilt because the way he looked down, because he didn't actually invoke the fifth. That's why you actually have to say it, and then you shut the fuck up.
That's crazy to me that you actually have to speak to leverage your right to remain silent. I'm sure that we try to educate people on stuff every day, and I'm sure that's something that most people don't know. I only learned it because I watched a ton of video for this interview, but it's crazy to me. So I want to back up. I know you guys, your script went viral, and
let me say one thing, because we forget to throw this in. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
go for it. You're in the driver's seat. I'm the boring one in this conversation.
No, people confuse though your Miranda rights. And when the cop has to read you those rights, your right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, all that blah, blah, blah. Because people go, well, they'll talk to him during this period of just getting pulled over. They're not being detained. And they'll talk to him. And then later they'll say, he never read me my rights. Reading the rights the case law is, that's when the cop is obligated to tell you those things. So he doesn't have to tell you those things when he walks up to the car. So whatever you say or do is going to be used against you. Don't wait for the Miranda rights. You go to bed with them, you sleep with them, you wake up with them. Those are your constitutional rights, and that's why they apply across the whole U.S. And you can invoke it at any time. You don't have to wait for the Miranda rights. So anyways.
Got it. So almost treat it like you're in the car the entire time, as most people would look at it. From the moment he steps up to the car. Listen, I know you guys do a ton of legal advice. Your Shut the Fuck Up Fridays are great. A lot of the Instagram lives that you guys do. But at the end of the day, you guys have also built a pretty successful business. And that's really intriguing, because I'm sure you guys were busting your ass before it went viral. And the fact that you were able to capitalize on it is amazing, because not too many people can do that. You guys could have been, one-hit wonders or had your 30 seconds of fame, but you continue years later to be successful. What made you get into cannabis law? Everybody has that one story. And where were you and your brother really operating in what space before it clicked? Like, hey, cannabis users need help. They need someone that they can go to. And eventually this is going to turn into an industry where we can we can leverage our knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, it's all based on my son. You want to follow him on Instagram. He's at JCures. Co-owner of West Coast Cure, one of the largest brands out here in California. It's known a lot across the states as well. But he wanted to get into cannabis back in 1990, late 90s. In the late 90s, he wanted to get into cannabis. And it was just at the time that SB 20 out here in California, we had Proposition 215, which gave people rights to grow and consume their own medicine if it was a recommendation involved. And then SB 420, which was a Senate bill out here in California, put together a plan of how to, if you want to grow it, because there was no vehicle for growing it and selling it or giving it away. You had to just grow your own, which people can't do that. So this allowed people to use it to engage as a business or as a caregiver, and there were specific rules. It was still a felony first, but they gave you literally a defense. If you do it this way, X, Y, and Z, then you're going to be able to defend the felony. So we went to school on learning everything there was to know about how to properly, operate a cannabis business back then. And that was when it was a collective and a cooperative out here in California. So it was because of my son, and he was pretty young when he first got into it. But when he said, I want to grow, he had a passion for it. He had a passion for helping patients. It helped him as medicinal value. And so that's kind of how we started. And I'd already been an attorney for 10 years or so when my brother passed the bar, and he went into criminal law right off the bat. So he started doing cases that included cannabis cases, which was mainly against patients, because people would get caught with weed and they'd show them their patient card and the cops didn't care. We'd have to fight all these cases. So it really started because of my son, though. And then he ended up going through 2 felony cases a couple years apart, one cultivation and one while he had a delivery business. And he's been embedded in the culture for years as well. So we've come up through the bottom up, from the culture, from the dirt. I mean, one of our first, we went to a High Times event, I don't know, 45 years ago, and we had a 10 by 10 booth. Walked around talking to people, walked right into the dirt and the mud, and it was raining, and gave people free tips on stuff, and it just was kind of organic. That's how we started on Instagram, but just coming up through the ranks, we never advertised. I've been 33 years in my own practice, my brother 20 something, and I chose never to advertise. It's all word of mouth. And I think the comment you made was kind of funny, that you don't see us a lot at some of these big business conventions. We actually just got picked up to do a three tour deal with Canacon.
Oh, very cool.
But I think the reason is we're more of a for the people, with the people type of a vibe. Don't wear a suit every day. Don't wear a tie. Don't have a big high rise. We don't really fucking care. If you want a high rise in a suit, you're going to go probably pay a lawyer who doesn't like you and doesn't like weed and is going to charge you $700 an hour. And a lot of these firms, these big firms have I don't know if it's publicity or whatever they do, but these big, huge firms have now brought on cannabis departments. And they bring people that, some of them are very bright. I'm not going to put anybody down, but others don't know the industry like we know the industry. And so that's why we really never get picked up on those business conventions as much as we do more of the consumption events, because that's kind of where we thrive. I don't need, people know who we are, and we have people coming in here with suits and ties that don't care that I'm not in one. We have people coming in shorts and t-shirts, and, everybody's treated the same. And I don't know if I got off on a tangent.
No, I kind of understand that a lot, right? I look at you two, and you really live it, right? There are a lot of prestigious law firms that have cannabis practices, and I will be honest, I've met a lot of them, and I don't want to say they want to be you, but they want to be able to do what you and your brother are doing and be as open as you guys are, because they do live the life. They're part of it, but they feel within these large prestigious firms that they can't, right? And I'm sure there's pressure from the firms that is the same exact thing. You guys are not only smart attorneys that have a track record of success, but you're also great entrepreneurs, because you're able to do what you're doing and live by your own rules. I think, it's funny. I listen to you guys talk about fighting the stigma. I think if someone is just to scroll through your website or scroll through your page, they might be like, oh yeah, these are a bunch of potheads, just by looking at first glance. But if you open up that video and you listen to you and your brother talk and look at the cases that you've talked about, and listen to some of the videos that you've done, you hear how well you know the industry. So I almost think it's a phenomenal marketing ploy, not that it's a ploy, you guys do this, that you're almost using the the stigma to your advantage to pull people into almost for hate, and then you open your mouth and change their mind. Do you see that a lot, or is it just wide acceptance from the get-go?
Well, you know what's funny is there's a lot more acceptance than not. We do get the comments, potheads. Oh, those are just a bunch of pothead lawyers. Really doesn't bother me at all, because I'll tell someone to their face near my office, go fuck yourself if you don't like how I dress or what I do, that I smoke on camera. I mean, it didn't start off as easy as that. I mean, as I said, we never advertised, but my son was in the culture, so we've represented a lot of people who've been in the culture for 20, 30 years. Know all the players. It's a small community. But what happened was my son had been telling us for a couple of years, you guys got to get on Instagram. You got to get on Instagram. Remember, I'm 58, and I'm getting over Facebook. Like I'm over Facebook, and here's this new Instagram thing that had 15-second videos, 15 seconds. And we just, like my brother and I, nah.
Yeah.
One day he calls me up and says, hey, I'm hanging out with Be Real at Be Real TV in LA. There's a kid that we love to mention him every time, Adam Ills. He's a cannabis personality. He does a lot of DJing, a lot of events. He does some really good stuff. He now has his own brand. Great kid. And he has his talk show called Getting High With. And he talks to rappers and personalities and sits on these two big chairs and he interviews you. And while you're getting interviewed, it's being live streamed. He's got bongs and rigs and joints and all, everything. So my son calls me up and says, Dad, I want you and Uncle Mark to get on the show with Adam. They want to ask people questions about the law. And Prop 64 was coming into play.
Okay.
And what should we do? Should we vote for it? Should we not vote for it? And, people are saying this about it and people are saying this about it. And I know you guys will just tell the truth. And my brother's like, fuck yeah, do it in a minute. And I'm like, older. I wouldn't say I'm not a conservative, but I'm more conservative. I'm like, shit, man, what's the bar gonna think? What's gonna happen with the state bar? And I thought about it and said, you know what? We have our medical recommendations. It's private property. Who's gonna be watching this show anyways? But probably a very younger demographic if you look up Adam Mill. And I said, fuck it, let's do it. Let's do it. And so we went to Be Real Studios. We did the show. And after the show, my son's going, you really do need to get an Instagram. Okay, my brother and I had teased years earlier about being pot brothers. We were brothers who also smoked pot. We were pot brothers. And so I stood there at Be Real and I put in, and it's funny because our Instagram is POT_brothers_@_. It kills me every time I hear that, because we have a backup account, Pot Brothers at Law, but our main account is like that because I'm signing in. I'm literally creating an account at Be Real. And as I'm doing POT, I hit space and don't see the underscore.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize an underscore was going in between each word. So that's how it became with all the underscores. And I put up a picture with Be Real. And that's how the page was actually created. And then we sat around going, what are we gonna do with this? Let's post some legal stuff, because there was only 15 seconds. And if you go way down our page at the very beginning, it sounds like slow speed, actually, our 15-second tips. Because we got right before Instagram went to a minute, we got pretty good at giving out a lot of advice in 15 seconds. And we just decided that there's stuff that people don't have $250 for a console. They don't have $100 for a console. And these are things that we felt we were already doing. As the way, if someone calls and asks a couple basic questions, we're going to tell you. We're not going to say, yeah, you want to talk to me? $250 consultation. I'll talk to you then. We'll answer a handful of questions. So we decided to do that on Instagram. And then it turned into the 15-second tips. And then it turned into, it was more California oriented, because that's where we practice. But then the script started to come about, and it started to be how people would deal with police, which was then not just California law. The Fourth Amendment to the United States and the right of self-incrimination isn't state by state. So that's kind of how it took on a bigger presence. And as my son said, it was just me and my brother who we are. We don't give a fuck. And if someone doesn't like me smoking and they don't want to hire me, then fuck them. And we decided to start doing tips, and me smoking, my brother talking, and went from there. And what my son said, it was organic, because when we first started, we've got like almost 450,000 followers.
Wow.
We were just in probably 5,000, maybe 10,000. It grew pretty quick. We were really blown away because we had no clue what Instagram was, what it could accomplish. Especially the cannabis community within Instagram is huge, and everybody knows everybody. We had no clue, and I'm like, dude, you're hanging out with Wiz Khalifa. You know how many followers Wiz Khalifa has, dude? Have him shout us out, right? Oh my God, I almost got a beat down. Like, Dad, that's not how it works. That's not how, you know how much people pay people to do shout outs and stuff? And if they want to do it, it's got to be organic. He goes, you guys so far have been organic. What the fuck is that? That means people are following you. We're not doing anything. We're not buying followers. We're not getting shout outs from big people, getting paid for shout outs to advertise us. It's just happening. And so from that point forward, we've had a lot of people repost us, but it's always been organic. It's never been, hey, can you repost us? And
Yeah.
it's just us. It's the family oriented vibe, I think, that we have, because we came up in the culture of cannabis, the backs of which now big business is fucking breaking, getting into it. And that kills us, actually. And we still really try to help the underdog, which nowadays is everybody but the big business.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. So before the show started rolling here, or whatever you want to call it, because we're on webcams, we had mentioned how Florida is, and Florida has 22 licenses, and we have 14 of those licenses that are operating. And to get started in Florida, you need 10 figures, right? And it's unfortunate, and that's something that where Cannabis Lab and a lot of the people down here in Florida support is breaking up vertical integration and making it so we can have thousands of licenses like California does, and give a chance to, I mean, if not just the average person who wants to get a startup, but at least somebody who has a few bucks in their pocket that just wants to follow their dream. It sucks that at this point, because, and you tell me if you disagree, it sucks at this point because of federal regulation and because it's so regulated by state to state, that you need deep pockets to essentially be a farmer, right? At the end of the day, when people are cultivating, they're farming.
Dude, it's horrible across the whole US. Wherever it's semi-legalized, because remember, every state that has it legalized still has marijuana criminal laws.
Right.
Every state. So that's number one. People are still getting arrested for it while big corporations are trying to make money. What they need to do across the board, it's the same here in California. Now, there's a lot more licenses available, but you still need that same startup capital, because it's like you have to build a Fort Knox to have a business that you really don't need Fort Knox. You don't need the security of Fort Knox for most of these businesses. You don't need to spend the regulatory fees that they're charging. The problem is, like in California, it's actually relative, probably not as different as Florida as you think. With the population we have in California, under a third, it might even be 20% or less of 470 fucking cities in the state of California allow cannabis activity. That's 20% allow. Some of the other cities are still allowed to ban it, even though people in their city voted majority for Prop 64, which is which was authorized the regulation of the cannabis businesses. So you have such a squeeze on the few cities that allow it, and within those cities, they only allow so much. And then they have all these regulatory hurdles that you need deep pockets. I mean, they need to open it up, make it free market, treat it like alcohol, tax it like alcohol. They don't tax alcohol 30, 40%. That's why the illegal stores out here are never going to end. 30, 40%, upwards of 40-something% effective tax in California at the end of the day. So they need to, it's over-regulation and the caps on businesses is because the old conservative politicians, this is the only way for them to justify allowing it, even though they don't agree with it, and charging all the high fees to get money off it. But what they don't understand is if they don't get it. They don't get the culture. They see, I think, the reefer madness mentality, as opposed to there's very little crime within the cannabis space. When, in the old days, when you're dealing with people, I mean, sure, it happened. Criminals everywhere in every business, but we regulated ourselves. People was handshake deals back then.
Yeah.
You want to put a cannabis deal on paper anyways.
Well, I would almost argue that any violence in the cannabis world stem from the cartels being involved, right? Not from the average people that were selling and dealing it, right? It's
No,
the people all the way
very
at the top.
small percent. You still had a little
Yeah.
bit, but like anything. But yeah, it was, if anything, very minuscule percent of the people actually in
Yeah.
the business, rather than the cartels and other maybe other organized gangs that were involved in growing and grow houses and stuff like that.
But that's all prohibition ever does is create black markets and create organizations in those black markets, which is essentially organized crime. You would think that some of these older senators that have been around for a while would have learned lessons from alcohol prohibition.
No, it's just that they can't get off their moral high horse. I mean, the House of Representatives already passed the SAFE Act, which I can't remember off the details off the top of my head, but that was dealing with banking, descheduling it, all kinds of stuff. But the Senate won't budge on it because it's still run by Republicans. Now we've had the opportunity on our show and our platform to meet several Republican candidates, Democratic candidates across the country who are campaigning on the policy of cannabis and legalizing cannabis, not just saying it as a soundbite, but that's actually in their paperwork. We actually interviewed a guy out there in Florida, Christopher. Oh,
I should know this one.
You know what?
Now
But I
everybody
think he's
knows
not
that
running.
I suck at politics.
Something came up to where, because we talked to someone else, a sheriff who's running out in Florida. No, It's a guy running for sheriff to become a constitutional sheriff, where he's not going to enforce any of the marijuana laws. And as a constitutional sheriff, I didn't realize this. He doesn't work for police. He's voted on. And he has like autonomy. And he doesn't have to listen to the city council. He doesn't, he can say, I'm not enforcing that law. And I can't remember what county he's running for sheriff in, but he actually hit us up for his endorsement. And but there are people running that can change it. So if you're listening, get out and fucking vote. Go find those people who are running on those platforms. There's a lot of people running on those platforms. That's the only way it's going to change, because these old guys, it's slapping them in the face. It's slapping them in the face with evidence and testimonials and evidence that cannabis is not only not bad and doesn't cause crime, it's good for you.
Yeah. Well, we talk about this on the show a lot, but if you really look at the greater cannabis community, it's a wellness community, right? It's people that are into more natural things, more good for you things, that are actually worried about the things they put in their body. I look at you guys, and you've talked about the fact that you guys use cannabis to help you in your jobs and your careers. And I believe in that, right? And I believe that everybody knows their limits. They know what they should and shouldn't take, what they can and can't do. But people would look down on you for using cannabis throughout the day to help you with your job. But if that happened to be some sort of prescription, like a Zoloft or an Adderall or whatever it is, then you're perfectly fine. It doesn't make sense to me.
Or how about the few martini drink, or the lunch
In there,
you martini lunch? Shit, man.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of weed. I've been medicating, because there is really. Wait, hold on one sec. Shit, man.
Sure
It's
thing.
one of my kids.
You always got to check in on the kids.
Always. The okay. Yes. Text me. Fuck, where was I?
We were talking about the 3 martini lunches and everything else.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of weed is, I've been smoking every day, all day, probably since I was 16 or 17, give or take a day or two, or a week or two, or whatever. And it's kept me, I think, at that. I'm such an I'm such plus A. I'm like a high octane. Bam, 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 bam. And this keeps us at a level where it's like, instead of taking any kind of drug that's going to cloud my mind, this doesn't cloud my mind. It makes me focus. It is what it is. It's what I've been doing all these years to be where I am. And if you can't do it, I know a lot of people, when here, you want a joint? Well, we can't pass shit anymore, unfortunately. That's kind of sucks right now. You can't pass joints.
It does.
But when you would pass a joint, they say, no, I only smoke at night. I only take a dab at night before bed.
Yeah.
I only do it after work, because they know that it affects them a certain way. And if it's not good, then you don't do it. I mean, and that's the beauty of weed, as opposed to, addictive drugs, crack, cocaine, opiates, where you have no choice but to keep taking it when you get addicted.
No, we had we had RB Barrasso, who's one of the co-founders of Green Roads, a big CBD company, and that happened to him. He had a hip injury, and next thing you know, he was addicted to pain pills, not because he took them for fun. He wasn't taking them to party. It was because he had a hip injury and he needed a hip replacement, right? CBD helped save his life. I agree with you. I think it's about education. And getting people to understand that this is like alcohol. It's like medication. It has wellness components to it. Just because you smoke a joint it's no different than having a drink or two, right? And I'm going to do a shameless.
I mean, that's why we decided just to go fuck it. If we can't, if someone doesn't like me smoking on Instagram or on social media, then that's too bad. It's like normalizing it.
Yeah.
And that just kind of happened. And then, as I said, organically, we got picked up by, someone reached out. Michael Rappaport was pretty cool. That was really awesome meeting him.
So what was that podcast like? Because I love Mike Rappaport. He is like one of the greatest shit talkers of all time. He's a great actor. He's hilarious. What was that podcast like? So let's talk about the celebrity pop brothers. You guys got to go on I Am Rappaport. You got to go on Tosh.0. What was that first podcast with a guy like Mike Rapp like?
You know what? He was really super down to earth, just a real normal guy. I mean, he's a great guy. He's got his shtick, and I think he's truly like that. But when we were doing the podcast, he was just, he was very fascinated with our story, with my son, what he's doing in the space, and I mean, it was just a cool experience. And we just tell it like it is. So it's really, interviews, podcasts, they're not difficult, because we just kind of tell it like it is. And he had reached out to us, which was really cool. Tosh.0 awesome. Out of the blue reached out to us. And we did our little shtick with Tosh.0. That was fun.
That was hilarious. I actually just watched that about an hour ago.
Ridiculousness licensed one of our videos.
Very cool.
And the cool story about that is, it was actually the video that went completely viral. There was one that has like 500 million views. And the funny part is that the one that went viral was because of a guy. Well, actually, they're good friends of ours now. There's a Facebook page called Respect My Region, and they had reposted one of our posts, and they have a pretty big following on Facebook. And so Roger Stone, you know who Roger Stone is?
Yeah.
Okay. Which we had actually interviewed him 2 years earlier at the WCBE convention in New York. We had our radio show there, and we interviewed him there. He was all pro cannabis and blah, blah, blah. I didn't really know who much he was back then. Now I know who he is. Now he's been convicted on all kinds of shit. But he literally reposted that on his Facebook page and said, these guys should have been my attorneys. Because he couldn't shut the fuck up. He was, the judge had to remember him back when he was going through his lawsuit or his criminal case. He just couldn't be quiet. And so he reposted that, and then that went nuts. And that's actually what caused that to go viral. And then from that, we had other people out to us like Tosh.0, I think, Ridiculousness. They wanted to use a clip, and I told them, no, and they wanted to pay us for it. And I said, no. I said, I know what the show is. You make fun of videos, and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So they said, fine. And 2 months later, we actually they sent us a thing saying, we don't normally do this, But here's the whole clip, start to finish, of how we're using your video. Okay? Penn Jillette was on the panel, and it was about people being quiet segment, I guess. And
Yeah.
showed our clip, and then Penn Jillette's like, that's the greatest advice you could ever get. And then said the same thing. I mean, so they showed us, because I'm like, well, I'm not going to be made fun of. I'm not going to sell this out just to make a buck. And they said, if you let us run it, we'll run it. If not, we won't. But we need to know now because it's going tomorrow. And we, of course, yes, because there was no making fun of us. That's not the purpose of what we did it for. So that was kind of cool that they ran it like that and respected that clip.
No, I think it's great. You guys have been reposted by a lot of celebrities. It really is great advice. Like, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up and let your lawyer handle it, right?
I mean, that's where, to clarify, the script, the last 25 words you ever say to the police, is not necessarily meant to stop you from getting arrested. It's not even necessarily meant to stop your ass from getting beat. All that stuff may eventually occur. This is not going to stop that. What it's going to do, though, if you get arrested and you said these 25 words, us or any attorney that you get is going to have 100 times better chance of getting you out. Off it, reduce charges, fight it. If you say anything other than what we're telling you, you're cutting our legs off at the knees to defend you. So, I mean, that's really the reason. And if they do beat your ass, they do pull you out of the car, and you followed what we said, there's so much video now, body cam, that they're going to end up paying for what they're doing. So and this is what's so weird, that this kind of crossed over into what we're now going through with the police right now, and the unrest because of the brutal police tactics that we've been fighting against for years, and getting people and we get law enforcement thanking us, believe it or not. We get a lot of thank yous because we teach this as being respectful, not fuck you, police, not fuck you, maybe fuck you, the guy, put his knee in someone's neck. But
fuck that guy.
Comes up to you, you're polite, you're not discussing your day, you're not talking, sorry. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to de-escalate any situation that could get escalated. And it's really crossed over into the current state, not just cannabis space. My parents were watching CNN, and one of the hosts was interviewing Killer Mike. You know who Killer Mike is?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't that familiar. My brother was. And my parents look at each other and go, did he just say Pop Brothers at Law on CNN? And
I saw that.
I think we just posted it up. He was talking to the host, and he was getting into his thing and said, there's these 2 Instagram accounts. One is Mr. Checkpoint. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mr. Checkpoint.
I'm not.
Look him up. Instagram at Mr. Checkpoint. He's doing God's work. He not only can you get on an app where where DUI checkpoints are across the country, it's an app that's making police accountable. And he has a hashtag, AFTP, always film the police. Always film the police. Huge. Became a friend of his when he first started, and it helped push him, because that's the only reason we now have the proof of all the law enforcement abuse of force. It's not new. We've been doing this for years, but proving it is new. Being able to prove it, and them not saying I was afraid for my life. I was afraid for my life. 99.9% of the cops who kill someone get off because they were afraid for their life. You do what we say. If they argue that down the road, there's just no way they're going to be able to prove it. There's no way. So that's what that's meant for.
Very cool, man. Well, let me ask you a quick question, because you guys got really good at doing the 15-minute pitches, and it's not sloppy video. When I say that, it means you guys aren't stumbling on your words. There's not a lot of ums and ahs. I don't know that a lot of people know this, but your brother actually has a little bit of an entertainment background. I mean, he seems to have had a few roles in some major stuff. Did that really contribute?
We don't talk about his acting background.
No.
He always likes to. I tell him this isn't the form for that. But the short story, though, is years ago he was totally immersed in acting. He was going to get married, this is a long time ago, that didn't go through. And I said, dude, you know, what are you doing? Like what are you doing? What are you gonna do to support your wife? Wait tables, run film here and there while you're trying to get a job? I said, just do what I do. I go to court every day and I act depending on who hired me. Am I for you or am I against you? Do I have to fight you? Do I not? And then I go home, we're fine. I mean, so it's kind of like I'm acting every day in a sense. And I said, why don't you do that? And then you could fund your stuff and have a family. And so that's kind of segued into, I always take my, I always pat myself on the back, remind him of that fact. And that's kind of how he got into law. And then we just fell into it together when he started doing criminal law. And I'd already been doing law, and I gave him a space in my office, and kind of history from there.
That's an awesome story. I think it ended up being great advice, and I think you guys, you know, I'm glad that you gave him that advice, because look at where you guys are now. Let's talk about your radio show. So you guys have a radio show. What's that like? Because I'll be honest, I haven't seen it. I follow you guys on Instagram. I've seen a lot of the IG live stuff. I like a lot of the advice. You guys are super friendly on there. Let's talk a little bit more about the radio show. Where can people find it, and what are you guys doing with it?
Cannabis Talk 101, we started with a few years ago. We now are partnered with iHeartRadio.
Very cool.
Cannabis Talk 101 on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. I just learned to say that. So yeah, I'm off anywhere you get a podcast. You can just download Cannabis Talk 101 segments. It's fairly new. We dropped on 420. Figures. Let me turn this down. Sorry about that. I apologize.
No worries, man.
So yeah, and we're pushing it as a alternative to, it's like a CNN of cannabis, ESPN of cannabis, where we go over different. Hold on, just one second. Mom, I'm in the middle of doing an actual interview. Can I call you right back?
Just one thing. If you're going home to have your car washed, Bobby's there.
Okay.
I don't say anything to Bobby.
Okay, bye. Okay, nice. I'm sorry about that, but 81 years old, you got to take the phone call.
Yeah, I almost expected her to tell you to shut the fuck up when you got home.
Okay, wait. Yeah, Ma. I'm literally in the middle of a live interview. Okay, I might have been a butt call back. So that I think what's happened is we're just, because we've been hit up for reality shows, and I'm like, if someone thinks it's interesting to follow me around, all right, I'll think about it. But we're not scripted. I watch with my wife Real Housewives. I mean, reality shows that they're scripted. Yeah. They're you got to go in this arc of conflict, and that's why people watch them, because it's entertaining. And I said no. It just, unless if you literally want to do a follow around and put it into a format that a producer wants to do, I'll look at it. But other than that, I'm going to do what I do. That's it. And I think
you
that's
guys are lawyers first and foremost. Yeah,
I mean that's what we do. And if something comes along like that and it fits, then I'll consider it. Otherwise, I don't need to. Like it all goes back to my brother and I just being who we are. It's organic. I mean, we go out to the parking lot. We do our tip of the day. It started at 15 seconds. I mean, if you go back far down, I mean, you'll hear us the first 15-second tip. We sound like we were in slow motion. And then as you go further into the 15 seconds, we get quicker and quicker. My brother did, actually. He got quicker and quicker with how much he could get in 15 seconds. And then when it went to a minute, it's almost like, my God, it's like an hour going from being confined to 15 seconds. And it just kind of developed. And then the whole shut the fuck up and the whole script just kind of blew up across. I mean, we get Canada, UK, Ireland, Australia, Zimbabwe. I mean, we get listeners and followers from all over the place. And our podcast, Cannabis Talk 101, drops on iHeartRadio and wherever you get your podcasts on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We do a couple of different segments. I do straight up news. My brother does stories when cannabis goes bad. Like this one story he just recently did where they couldn't find the weed on the guy, and a dog came out and found it in his crack, literally in his crack. So that's kind of a when cannabis goes bad story. And then we have Joe Grande. He was a radio personality prior to us meeting him. He does business stuff. And then the creator of the show, Blue, was a hip hop artist, does a lot of other stuff. He does stuff about people, up and comers in the industry. And just we try to make it serious, fun, but serious, but not your stoner. There's a lot of podcasts, there's a lot of cannabis, channels like that, but we didn't feel there was one on that type of a level.
No.
My brother and I started Twitch, which we're also Cannabis Talk 101 started, but my brother and I, Pop Brothers at Law, one word, on Twitch. We're telling people to make the switch to Twitch because, believe it or not, our engagement on our Instagram with so many followers is down because what we hear are things like shadow banning and some other things that people aren't getting notices of when we're going live, of all kinds of things. And even though they have notifications turned on, so we're switching to Twitch where it's live. It's different than the talk show that we're still doing 100%. It's a whole different vibe, different news. You're not going to hear that if you look at my brother and I on Twitch. You're going to talk to Craig and Marc, and you're going to bullshit, and you're going to talk and ask questions. And have you ever been on Twitch yet?
I have not, but I'm.
That's funny. I'm older than I'm the older guy, and I've been on Twitch. I know more.
I'm gonna be 34 next month. I probably should know what it is. I have a 7-month-old daughter. I'm sure when she gets old enough, she'll start teaching me what all this stuff is.
It started off as a gamer site. So if you weren't a gamer, you probably wouldn't know about it. And it was all about streaming video, and we don't get censored. It's live, raw, uncensored, Marc and Craig. So we're kind of doing that too. And other than that, we're just getting cases every day, people getting busted. Also, we're doing the regulatory process, permitting at the city level, the state level, regulations, applications, permits, licenses. We do it full service from the criminal end to the business end.
Very cool, man. It is awesome. And I know I've kept you for the better part of an hour here. The conversation's been amazing, man. It's been great to get to know you. And I love what you guys are doing because you guys have been yourself, and from being yourself, you've been able to, really advocate for our industry and build a phenomenal business for you and your brother. And I think it's incredible. And now your son is in the industry and you get to, I'm sure, work with him in some capacity. It's been an honor to have you on the show, man.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, man. I hope everybody has a good one out there and hope you learned something. And if you don't remember anything else, shut the fuck up. Cops ask questions.
Well, we will end it on that note. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Elevate Your Grind. We're out. Hey, man, thank you very much. That was awesome. I really appreciate it.
All right, brother. My pleasure. Let us know. Email us when we can look at it, when it'll be up, or is it?
Yeah.
Were we live or you were recording?
We did both. We do a Facebook Live where we get a few of our viewers, but what we'll actually do is we'll edit it and then put the logos up there and everything else. We can add the links to your Instagram and all that good stuff. And then we'll re-premiere it like you guys do on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts from. So we'll let you know when that launches for sure. Perfect. Probably, I would say a week.
All right. Just give us a buzz, drop us a line. If you ever want to follow up, that's no problem too, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. No, we're a cannabis industry organization. We do a conference every year. If there's something we can do there, man, we'd love to have you. You have a ton of fans in our group.
Where do you do your conference?
In Miami.
Which one is it?
So our group is called Cannabis Lab. Lab stands for Law, Accounting, and Business. So it's just our conference we do every year. We actually do monthly networking events for cannabis industry people down here. That's our main business.
Oh, that's
and this
awesome.
Just kind of advertises it. Yeah.
All right, cool. I got to run. My phone's blowing up, but
yeah, man, I'll let you go. Thank you again.
We'll stay in touch.
Sounds good. I'll follow up with you.